Hey guys, welcome back to the channel and another episode on CAS TV. I'm here with my wingman, Parm. Yeah, proper wingman. And we're doing a sort of follow-up episode to the history of CAS and how CAS started. That video went out on the channel middle of February and we had some extremely positive feedback. Would you say so?
Yeah, no, it was pretty good. I think more importantly, people like to know who and what they're dealing with when they're buying something. And obviously with us, they're in black and white, where it all started.
Colour.
Why it all started.
It's in colour. We don't watch black and white TV
Yeah,
anymore.
but 25 years ago.
What, you had a black and white TV 25 years ago? You bullshit, you did not. Sorry, we could start again, but we're going to roll. We're going to carry on. So yeah, Palm, no crap, please, on this episode.
Listen, none of this is rehearsed. This is all like it's all genuine. Which
It's not rehearsed. We walked up into our media room, which exists but we never use, and Harrison and Jason have put these headphones down on the table and said we're wearing these headphones. Now I think we look rather silly. Palm's like obviously sworn quite a few times because that's in his nature to do that. But so guys, we are going to sit here with our headphones because apparently it picks up any noise and any interference that we know if we're moving around, and then we can obviously change that whilst we're filming. However, these headphones are very comfortable, aren't they?
They're pretty good.
They're the Grado SR325s, guys. They're available on the Home AV website. Forever the Businessman. If you want these, they're awesome. I'm telling you that now. They're 10 out of 10. Apparently they're handmade. Link in the description below. Have a look at the specs on offer as well. What do you reckon, Paul? Good headphones.
That was a good little plug, that. Yeah, well done.
Why not? Yeah. Forever the Businessman.
CAS Unplugged.
So our last episode went out 6-7 weeks ago. We didn't know what kind of response we'd get as our first sort of podcast format video, and a lot of positive feedback, a lot of personal DMs to myself, a lot of messages and comments on the actual video itself that we will go through. I've got my phone here. We'll read some of those comments, and it's great to feel loved because we've had a lot of love and a lot of customers who have been customers for 20, 30 years who maybe we've forgotten about because they no longer come to the new showroom and, you know, they maybe moved out of the car audio scene, but they remember us from back in the day. So it's really nice hearing those stories. That's why we're here 6 weeks on to shoot a follow-up episode. So we'll cover some of the points that were covered by yourselves in that episode. And then we'll talk about Max Power and how things have changed from the 1990s Max Power era, how marketing has changed, how advertising has changed, how we've changed, apart from the grey hair, because I didn't have any grey hair then, to where we are today. So, Palm, I'm going to grab my phone and look at some of the comments from the last episode. I'll read them out and we can have a little convo about them if need be. So, chap called Andy Owner 1410. Oh yes, Palm, who used to do me some serious deals on OZ Futuras at CAR in Hanwell. Do you remember those days? And Raj, who never disappointed with the best stereos. I think I still have my Denon Dolby C cassette that was fitted in my Silver Rose. Nice one.
Wow.
Business of the decade. Ooh, really? Thank you. I'll take that. Don't think so, but I'll take that. Red 90, very interesting video. I remember the Tottenham Court Road days. I lived in Streatham, started off in Birmingham, bought a head unit from one of our competitors recently. Why'd you do that? Funk Master J. I bought a really good head unit from Raj for my old Mazda 323. I guarantee the head unit's still going. That Mazda's probably dead and buried by now. Palm, there's a really nice comment here which resonates with something I mentioned in the last episode. Chap called Brian36, Bryan 36. That JBL sub-amp deal was legendary. I must have taken over 10 of my mates to CAS to pick up that deal. And I didn't even have a car at that time. Well, that's Brian. Brilliant. Yeah, thanks for all the business over the years. Appreciate that. So yeah, some really great comments here, some really positive feedback, some long-term customers, as I mentioned earlier, people talking about cars, you know, talking about Persia 205s because I did mention that. So now we did touch on magazines, and obviously we mentioned some Max Power and Revs magazines in our previous episode. In fact, if you recall, the first ever copy of Revs, my friend Rajesh had his Mark I Golf featured on that first ever copy. It was on the front cover, and we had adverts inside Revs magazines and Max Power magazines for, I don't know, it must have been for best part of 12, 13, 14 years, up until Max Power disappeared a few years ago. So what we decided to do was take a trip down memory lane, more so with Max Power. So we managed to buy some Max Powers off eBay and see what else we can find in those magazines, bar what's on the sort of back sections of Max Power, because we can't show that on this channel.
So back in, oh yeah, Max Power, yeah, Triple X. So if I remember correctly, if you wanted to sell your car in Max Power or advertise it in Max Power, you had to fill out a form and post it to them?
Yeah, so this is before. You're talking like this episode here, sorry, this particular magazine's from September 94. That's pre-internet.
So yeah, you'd have to rip out the page, fill out the form.
Take a picture on a camera, get that picture developed, send it to Max Power with the form. I think it was free. They didn't charge you for that, for the advert. And then you'd have to wait 3-4 weeks for the advert to come out. By that time, you could have sold your car because you could have put it in Auto Trader, the following Thursday, and chances are someone would have grabbed it if it was competitively priced. If
you look back, it was quite a laid-back era, and just like, put things in the post. And, it's like when you're buying if you were trying to buy a property, there was always a blame game. Oh, the post didn't turn up with your contracts, this, that, and the other. And like now, it's email. It's like no one can blag it anymore.
How many times did I chase people for payment, and they're like, "Yeah, your check's in the post. Your check's in the post." A week later, the check's. Oh, I must have got lost. I'll send you another one. 2 weeks later, the check turns up.
Yeah, so the check turns up 2 weeks later, but then I forgot to sign it.
Yeah. So I'll send someone over and you can get a new check. I'm out of the country for a week. Anyway, we're digressing. So, Parm, shall we grab one of these magazines and maybe have a look at some of the car values and compare car values to now?
You grab one, I'll grab one. For those of you that don't know, or you're not old enough, or you've never heard of, this is Max Power. And this used to be the go-to magazine for any petrol head. If you wanted to buy something for your car, there was literally hundreds of adverts in the back. And I could tell you now, a lot of these, actually, probably nearly all of them, are not even around anymore.
The businesses, you mean?
Yeah, the businesses. Well, even the magazine's not about anymore.
The magazine's not. And I'm just going to touch on something Parm said there. He said, if you were a petrol head, I don't think every petrol head bought Max Power magazine because it did have a certain type of following. That following was the younger audience, sort of 16 before you bought a car, up to about maybe 30. The proper, what you would class as a petrol head now, wouldn't be seen dead with Max Power because some people thought of it as a boy racer magazine. Would you not agree there?
Well, as well as being a boy racer mag, it obviously had the XXX rated stuff in it. So, I mean, it's totally not the done thing anymore, I don't think. Paper print, it's pretty much, I think, waste of money now.
Yeah, I mean, if you were seeing on the underground, we're reading a Max Power magazine, you'd get quite a few raised eyebrows. Whereas if you were sitting there reading Evo or Top Gear, you'd be like, oh, this guy's a petrol head. So that's the definition. That's the difference, I mean, between petrol head and boy racer. Nothing wrong with boy racers because we were boy racers. But yeah, just wanted to throw that out there. So yeah, if you're born in 70s and 80s, and maybe the early 90s, you're very familiar with Max Power. If you're born in the noughties, you might have heard of the Max Power magazine. Well, this was it. It was the go-to magazine in the modifying game. And over the 15 years or however long it ran for, it really showed some amazing cars, some amazing builds. But one cool section, Parm, which we now are on, are the classifieds. And this is an interesting read. So let's look at car values, Parm. Let me play a guessing game because you've not seen this. So this is September 94. Did you find anything interesting in yours? Actually, let me see.
There was no classifieds in my
I've got one here. Let's see if you can guess this one. September 94, Peugeot 20519 GTI. And you guys know I love a 19 GTI because that's where I started. It's laser green. It's an 89. It's got sunroof, electric windows. 35,000 miles. The seller's name is Rodney.
Good old Rodders.
Yeah, good old Rodders. It's a London number. You can only call him after 7 p.m. So if you want to give him a shout, it'll be later on this evening.
So that's obviously, he didn't have a mobile phone. You had to wait until he got home from work.
Correct.
To ring him. Mate, that's like, can you imagine someone trying to do that in this day and age?
Imagine he came home from work and his answering machine had 30 messages on there. Now, who do you ring first?
You'll be like, this, I'm going to keep the car.
Yeah. I've obviously priced it too cheap. Yeah, mate, it's sold. Put it in the next week's advert and ask for a bit more. How much do you think that car was up? He's changed his wheels. So he's not got the, what are they called?
The pepper pots.
Pepper pots. Anyway, so what do you reckon that car's up for?
I don't know. It's got to be at least $5,500.
£4,000. So you're a bit off with that one.
Bloody hell.
You're a bit off with that one. And in terms of prices, I think if you look at the custom, the Series 1, that's shot up in value considerably more than the Pug. Bear in mind, they didn't make that many customs. So that was £3,200 back then. You probably could have got a deal and maybe got it for 3K. But now you're looking at 25K. And if you had an absolutely mint Series 1 custom now with 50, 60,000 miles, that'd be worth a surplus of 30K. A Pug 19 GTI now in really great condition, immaculate, because don't forget, both of these cars are rust buckets. Maximum, I would say, is 20K. So in terms of...
Cheaper than that.
But I think 20K, 15K, 12 to 15K will buy you something with 100, 120,000 miles. So it shows you where the car market's gone. Wow. Check this out. 944, 17-inch AZEFs. Wow. This can't be a max power reader. There's no way a max power reader back in the day had a Porsche 944. Someone's selling a Brabham Bremen head unit. What? £300. You get one of those for new now. And it'll have USB and Bluetooth. Your one back then didn't. Some people were taking the piss back in the day. You know that.
Okay. Look, we've got a Golf Rally here.
Oh, that's right up your street, isn't it?
So Mark II Golf Rally, okay, G-Reg, totally standard and original.
See, he's coming out with his Cockney accent there, totally. Suddenly he just changes when he sees a Golf.
G60 supercharged, four-wheel drive, ABS, all the
good things.
70,000 miles.
70. It's quite a lot back then.
Yeah. Now, that car today.
All right, what year is that magazine?
This is March 96.
And what year is that rally? 89.
G-Reg, so 89, 90.
So in 7 years, he's done 70,000 miles. That was his daily then.
It's about average, yeah.
Yeah, 10,000 miles a year. Wow, what a baller.
I mean, about now, this car's probably worth, I don't know, 25?
25K if it's a good one. 30K if it's a 25. Really minter.
And it's red in colour. Probably wasn't the most desirable colour for a rally back in the day. But how much do you reckon it was up for?
£5,200.
You're off the mark. So offers around £8,000.
For a rally back then?
Yeah. So, no, but
I would have rather have bought the Pug 19 and the Series 1 RS Turbo.
Hold on. In 96, you could have bought, so a Mark II 16 valve so a normal 16 valve in 96 was probably around about $5,000. So $8,000 for a rally.
I suppose so.
And that's offers around. Listen, back in that day, you could go there with like $6,500 and you'd nick the car. But these days, people don't budge off the price. 20 grand's 20 grand.
Yeah, I suppose so.
If you want it, take it. But back then, you could literally go with a load of cash in your pocket. I mean, I remember buying my Mark III VR6. The guy had it up for $6,500. I only had $5,000. So I took $5,000 with me.
Chancer.
Cash. In an envelope. Had a look around the car. And then I literally handed him the envelope. I said, right, I'll take the car. I said, there's $5,000.
And he took it?
He took it. I was like, happy days. But
well, that doesn't mean customers, you can come into the shop now and you're going to settle your bill for $6.5 and you give us an envelope with $5,000. No. We'll take the envelope, but that will treat that as a deposit for the balance. Okay, so just remember that, guys. It was a different world back then.
I remember Auto Trader used to come out on a Thursday.
Correct.
Come on the third Thursday, you've bought your third Auto Trader and that same car's still in it. You know it's still for sale. You could have just gone there and just bid them down below and got yourself a real deal. But that doesn't exist anymore.
So how the market has changed, and you know, if we go back to this era, these were our customers when we were selling audio, bass boxes, speakers, and so on. These were our customers, and the thing with modifying a car back then, car audio was probably right at the top of the list. First thing you did when you bought a car was change your stereo and add some bass or 6B9s, and then you added your wheels or you change your suspension, add some cibbies and all of that stuff. So the modifying scene has changed from back then, because literally audio was, I know because I remember so many customers like, I've just bought this car the weekend, I need some sounds. And they'd buy a stereo, ISO, fitting kit, bass box, and boom, off they go. And then they start modifying it. Whereas now, audio is probably not the first thing you do, because most cars you buy, unless you're buying a classic, most cars you buy have a stereo that works.
Well, the thing is, all new cars now do actually come fully equipped. You know, they've got DAB, they've got CarPlay, and in some cars you can't actually change the stereo. In most of the other cars, it's a lot of aggro changing the stereo. Although it can be done, it's best to leave it to the professionals. You know, but there's always room for improvement. You know, people always want a bit more clarity, or they want a bit more volume, or they want a bit more bass. So, I mean, that's where nowadays integration comes into it.
Yeah, that's more on the newer car. So if you had a car from, say, the mid-2000s, say, for example, let's choose a Porsche 2005 997. It's going to have a stereo. Bluetooth may or may not work. If it's a 996, it won't have Bluetooth. If it's 997, it might have Bluetooth. Your phone's not going to work for CarPlay or Android Auto. It's going to have no USB, so you can't charge your phone. So ultimately, you are going to want to upgrade that stereo, but it's not something you want to do straight away.
It's going to be a monochrome display. The maps on it are going to be out of date. It's going to be...
It is going to be. So yeah, for that reason, car audio maybe is not at the top of your pecking order when you're looking to modify a car. You know, if you did buy that 996 or 997, the first thing you probably want to do is maybe change suspension because it's a bit tired. Then you do the wheels, and then you may look at adding some bit more power, so maybe upgrade the exhaust. And then at some point you think, you know what, I'll get to the audio. So that's where I think the game has changed when it comes to pecking order and what a customer wants to modify, do to their car first. Ultimately, they'll get to it. And nobody's really, well, I say nobody, 95% of that consumer is not buying the big bass boxes like they used to. You know, gone are the days where probably each one of these cars that I've mentioned, if you open the boot, there's either a sub box for sale in that car, or there is the leftovers of an amp wiring kit still in the boot. You know, everyone had big bass boxes back then. Everyone went to car shows and they were playing music, and it was kind of the done thing. Whereas now, less is more. You might have a bass box, but it might be a small active box. And you don't really go to a car show with your boot open with your bass playing. It's just not the done thing. Totally different world. So, Parm, before we get into the next segment, I've just grabbed another Max Power. What car would you pick from this era which you would like to have kept? Even if you didn't own it, what car, if you can jump back to 1995, Back to the Future in your DeLorean, what car would you go out and buy and then park up? And for what reason?
In all honesty, if I'd bloody kept all of those cars that I owned in my younger years, I'd be sitting on a bit of a gold mine right now, because Mark II 16 valves have gone through the roof. Mark III VR6s, to find a good one, they're best part of 10, 12 grand now. Series 2 turbo.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what? I've had 2 Series 1s. I've had about 3 Series 2s. Blew the engine up in every one of them. And because they were so cheap, I used to just leave it on the side of the road. I couldn't give a shit. But now it's just like, because they're so expensive, you don't want to let go of them. So I could have kept any one of those and I'd be sitting on a bit of a gold mine. But what you need to remember is that if a car was worth $5,000 then and it's worth, say, 20 grand now, it's probably cost you that £15K in upkeep, storage, insurance. So I don't think you've actually made 15 grand, but it's enabled you to save 15 grand. Because if you had 15 grand in your pocket, you would have blown it, right?
Chances are, yeah.
Yeah, but by slowly spending it on the upkeep of the car, insuring it, maintaining it, to me, it's kind of like a savings pot over the last 15, 20 years. So all of a sudden now you're going to get 15 grand profit back as a lump sum. Whereas otherwise you wouldn't have noticed it.
I understand what you're saying, but there's some cars from the mid to late 90s, which if you had kept, values have skyrocketed. So the upkeep, even if you'd serviced it and insured it for all that period, the prices have shot through the roof. And I'll give you some examples now, and I'm sure some of you will understand where I'm coming from. E30 M3s, mid to late 90s, they were probably 12K, 10K.
Which car?
E30 M3s. They were 10, 12K back in the day. And they even dropped to about 7K in the early 2000s. And now a good E30 M3 is 50, 60K upwards. Escort Cosworths, I bought one last year, as you know, and look how long we hunted for one of those. Escort Cosworth, brand new in 1995, was about 25 grand from memory, 24 grand. And, a good one now is double that. One with low miles and good history is triple that. Lancia Integrale, EVO2s, and we've just had one come through the workshop now. They were 10 grand cars, and they're now 80, 90 grand cars. Porsche 964s. Now, I remember in the early 2000s, you wanted to buy a 964. They were like 10 grand. People couldn't give them away because it was the 911 that people didn't love. They were uncherished. And now a stock 964 C2, 60K upwards. And if you got an RS, if you had a 964 RS, say in early 2002, that car was worth maybe 20K. That car's now 200K. So there are some cars that are special cars. And, you could argue that the boy racers would never have afforded an E30 M3 or an Integrale or a Cosy, but they aspired to.
Well, with the E30 M3, this is a true story. I was at Chelsea Cruise one night in my Mark II 16 valve, and there was a guy there with a white E30 M3, and he said, I love your Golf. Do you want to do a swap?
Nah.
Yeah. And I was at uni then. And part of me said, do it. But the other part of me said, what the hell am I going to do with a left-hand drive car with boxy arches on it? Looks ugly. Nah, I said to him.
Ugly? I don't know about that.
No, but back then it wasn't very desirable back then. It's a lot more desirable now, don't get me wrong. Mate, I'd love to have an E30 M3 now. So I just think that when something's got a price tag on it, it just becomes more desirable. Back then people couldn't get rid of their E30 M3s for 7, 8, 10 grand.
They were used as track mules.
I didn't want to swap one for my Mark II 16 valve. Don't get me wrong. I wish I did now. But I just think when something's quite rare and it's got a price tag on it, it becomes more desirable. And that's why they've shot through the roof.
And obviously a lot of these cars now have rusted away. I've gone through, you and I have gone through these magazines. I'd probably say 90% of those cars do not exist. You put that number plate into MOT, DVLA's MOT website.
Not found.
Not found. And thank you for the guys that let me know about my Peugeot, the last episode, not found. I did actually know that, but I thought, let you guys tell me that anyway.
Bit of engagement.
Yeah, thanks for telling me that. See, a lot of these cars don't exist. And there is that, there were thousands of these cars produced. And there's maybe only 100 left. I mean, I don't know how many Series 1 customs are left in the UK, but they made 3, 4, 5,000 of them. Escort Cosys, there were 7,000 made. It's not a limited run car, 7,000 units made, but there's not many in the UK. And how often do you see one on the road? You just don't. You see them at a car show. Anyway, so yeah, that's a little bit about car history and max power. You know, if you guys have any stories about your cars, just drop a comment below. What car did you have? What car did you aspire to get and couldn't afford? It was out of your price range, or you couldn't get insurance. That's another thing as well, Palm. You know, look at the Escort and the Sierra Cosworths. You couldn't get them insured for love or money because they were getting stolen. So you had to have what back then was a Vector immobilizer, if you remember.
Yeah.
You know, it was no good if you had a Scorpion alarm or a Toad alarm or a Clifford. It had to have a Vector immobilizer. So there was those stories. Well, now you can't get a Range Rover insured. Then you couldn't get a RS Cosworth insured. So the world has moved on. Right, so we're talking about cars and classic cars here and, you know, cars from the 90s. But one thing that we all have to remember is back then, nobody ever did a car history check. Did you ever do a car history check when you bought a car? You just bought the car and say so. The car's clean. You know, you don't know if it's been written off. You know, there are probably history checks available, but nobody ever thought of doing that.
Well, it was long-winded, wasn't it? Now you can do it on your phone.
Yeah, and talking about that, you know, if you are going to buy a classic car or a fairly new car, not necessarily a new car, but a fairly new car, we would suggest you carry out a car vertical history check. That's something we do every single time we buy a car. And remember, guys, we bought 12 cars last year, 11 of which were all secondhand, one was new. And we carried out a car vertical history check. The history check will verify if there's any mileage discrepancy. So i.e. if the mileage has been clocked back, which we know on classic cars was a big thing back then. If you check out the car on the screen now, can you imagine if you'd bought that car and knew that this was its history? So that's why it's important. You need to carry out a car vertical history check. It's simple. There's an app. The app works in over 20 different countries. Download the app, put in the details, pay your fee or buy a bunch of tickets, bunch of vouchers and use that for a few cars. And if you use the code CAS, C-A-S at the checkout, you'll get 20% off. The details for car vertical are in the description below. Make sure you do a car vertical history check before you buy your next car. Now let's carry on with the episode. So Palm, now that I've asked you what car would you long to own from back in the 90s, what car, two questions. What car do you think from the noughties you think will skyrocket over the next few years? And what car do you think from the current era, say the last few years, in time will appreciate?
Well, from the 90s, I think any car...
No, from the noughties. From the noughties. 90s we've done.
Yeah.
From the noughties. What car from the noughties?
What's the noughties? 2000? Millennium?
My guy.
Millennium? What's the noughties?
2000 to 2009. That's the noughties.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I thought that was millennium.
It is the millennium, but you don't say millennium. You say noughties.
Oh, really? Oh,
sorry,
okay.
guys. Yeah, I know. How have I managed to live with this guy for 20 odd years? Yeah. Hence
80s.
Hence the great years.
Oh, okay. 80s, 90s, noughties. So what era are we in now?
The 20s, but not the 1920s. Mate, the pennies drop. Dude, really?
Don't worry, I've sometimes wondered myself how I've got here, but never mind, I've managed it somehow.
I wonder myself how I've managed to let him get here. That P45 should have been issued 20 years ago. Anyway, so Palm, from the noughties, that's 2000 to 2009-ish.
Yeah.
What car, it may already appreciating, but what car do you think will have an uplift?
As we know, E46 M3 CSLs have already skyrocketed.
They're gone.
I think a good one now is you're probably 80.
Yeah.
80 to 100K. I think we've seen one recently go for 120.
That's very low miles, like 2,000 miles.
Astronomical. But the E46 M3 non-CSL, I think if you've got a good example manual, I think that's, if you've got a low mileage, clean example, if it's an individual, it will work in your favor. So a limited run color like Atlantis Blue or something like that. I think that would be a good one to keep hold of now. We did see them a few years back dip to below 10 grand. And I was like, we need to buy some, but we never did. But, to find a good E46 M3 now, you're looking 15 grand plus. For a really good low mileage example, I think people are asking 20, 25 grand. And I think it's the E46 M3 still looked upon as a true M car because it was naturally aspirated. Whereas all the new M3s now, they're all kind of twin turbo and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I think E46 M3.
A car maybe a little bit newer than that.
I don't know. What do you think?
Well, going back to the same era, the 90's era,
Yeah.
I think the E46 M3 is a great shout.
Yeah.
And there's obviously loads for sale.
Yeah.
You're right. Individual colours, manual, lower miles.
You say there's lots for sale. Half of them are
Dogs.
Annihilated.
Yeah, but you got to remember these cars got to a point where they were a few £1,000s. People don't maintain them. They don't look after them. They've had subframe issues, as you know.
Yeah.
Especially the SMGs. They haven't been loved. A lot of them, some of them have been used as track toys. They've been ragged. That's what those cars are designed for. I think the E46 M3 is a good shout. Maybe if you look at a slightly lower level car, look at a Clio, like the 182 Cups. I think that's that era, 172, 182 Cup. Although, again, some people now are using them for track toys, so there's less and less out there. If you maybe push the boat out and spend a bit more money, I think a really good 997, and we had it with the black one that we bought for CAS.
I think 997s have dropped again.
Well, I think in long-term wise, because it's the last of the true analog Porsches before they become so big. So if you look at the 991, look how bigger it is compared to the 997.
A lot more computer in it.
Yeah, so if you look at the C2S that we had, the 997, manual box, 6-speed, it's got that DNA of a Porsche. It's got the 5 dials of a Porsche. It's not digital.
Yeah.
Good driver's car, fairly easy and cheap to maintain, fairly reliable once you've sorted out any IMS issues or any of that nonsense. So I think the 997, low mileage, good color, not with nasty interiors and stuff like that. I think in time they will creep up. They're never going to shoot up unless it's like a GT3 or something like that. But then we're talking different ball game altogether. But what about C63 AMGs? Do you think they've dropped in value and they'll come back up, or is that car doesn't have maybe the following? Because we're not talking about Mercs. Do Mercs, they don't have the same following as the BM?
See, the problem you've got with those, they get ragged. Mate, the first thing, if a tire kicker wants a car these days, they automatically look towards AMG because they do sound absolutely brutal. They're fast. So if I was going to buy an AMG now, I'd be very, very wary because it's been ragged. So I'd maybe that won't be the case with the AMGs. I don't know.
What about stuff like Mark 6 Golf Rs, Mark 7 Golf Rs? We're talking mid to late noughties up to
there's too many of them.
2015s and stuff.
There's too many of them because a few years back, you could literally lease a Golf R. So a Mark 7 Golf R, you could lease it for £200 a month.
Yeah, okay. That's true.
Now, what that did was everybody thought, wow, this is a no-brainer. So all of a sudden, you got thousands and thousands. The roads were flooded with Golf Rs. So there's no what can I say? There's no speciality there,
and there's no big following for that because they're 2 to a penny. They're
two
everywhere.
To a penny. Again, they've all been trashed because
not all of them. I'm not calling you guys out. Not all of them. Most of them.
Listen, for £200 a month, you're leasing a Golf R. What are you going to do to it? You're going to map it. You're going to stage 2 map it. You're going to scream it up and down the road, and that's what was happening. So even now, if I was to buy a Mark 7 Golf R, I'd see who the first owner was. If it was a lease company, I'm not buying it.
Yeah, but at least with the lease company, it's been serviced. I think one that potentially is already on the up, going back to Fords and fast Fords, is Focus RS, the same shape that Jay-Z had.
Mark II Focus RS. Is
that the Mark II?
Yeah.
Those you can already see those prices are starting to creep up. Less than the Focus RS, the Gen 1, which was that blue version, the blue limited edition.
Yeah.
They all seem to be potting around 15 to 20K.
There's not many about.
Yeah. But the Mark II, the one that we ran on our fleet, They're now 30s and 40s and 50s.
Are they really?
Yeah, some of the lower mileage, some of the Larry colours like that green, they're 40s and 50s. So I think that could be one. And there's a massive forward following, as we've seen in these magazines, from the 80s and 90s all the way up. There's always a massive forward following.
Did we buy our one for like 20 grand?
Bought it for 22 grand. I think we ran it for 3 years and sold it for 22 grand.
Wow.
Or 20 grand.
Nice.
Did all right on that.
Yeah. Oh, look, listen, everybody, if you're a golf nut, I've
already shown that magazine, but that does look cool.
Who remembers that Mark II golf? Bruv, that was static. It was low as anything. And I remember,
that's before the days of air.
Yeah, man. Yeah, ultimately he's going down the road doing this, but
problem is you can't do that now because your man boobs will smack you in your face.
I ain't got man boobs, bro.
I haven't got man boobs. I go to the gym. So. There are some guys now where literally they'd be knocked out.
That golf was sick. I remember going.
Can you imagine ringing your insurance company, wrote my car off? What happened? My boob hit me in my face, knocked me out.
Yeah, dude, that's it. Rambo.
Infinity advert.
Rambo's. Oh yeah, bugger me. Wow.
Anyway, Parm.
Let's go.
So let's show you one of my adverts. One of our adverts from back in the day. It is RS Audio. I'm going to say one of mine because this is before Parm's era. So Parm was not with us in March 1996. So this is pre-car audio security, which is now 25 years old officially.
What an advert.
Boom, boom. So yeah, this advert would have been designed in my kitchen at home. Two pieces of paper, sketch some products, and then just send over an email to EMAP, I think it was, with all the different columns, the head units and the pricing and so on. We got old Alpine pull-out 7638, top of the range face-off.
How much was that?
£515.
What?
Got Kenwood entry-level CD changer package, 356 face-off, 10 CD, 4x22 watts. It's a lot of power back then. £370. So yeah, it was a different world back then. A simple CD tuner by Pioneer was £239. You tell a customer now if you want a simple CD tuner, it's £79. They look at you and say, what? I can buy one on Alibaba for $29.99 and have it delivered.
Yeah.
It might work today, but it won't tomorrow. But yeah, so this is one of our first adverts, an advert that I designed. And going back to what I said in the previous episode, this is when we had the Hanway Street little shop, which is now West End DJ. And we had 3 stores on Tottenham Court Road. Then they were all concessions. These were one on either side of Tottenham Court Road and one on the middle on the other side of Tottenham Court Road. So that was a very, very good era for us then. Pro Plus, do you remember that? Piranha car alarms.
Oh yeah, Piranha. Yeah.
Celestion ADT12 sub, won Car Hi-Fi Award, I think back in 1995. That was the sub to have. Denon 6-channel amplifier, everyone wanted that. Really cool amplifier. So yeah, this is an advert from back in the day, a trip down memory lane. We won't talk about cars because we've done that. And how things have changed from then. We no longer do any paper advertising.
Like I said a few minutes ago, does it still work? No, especially now that we've got smartphones. The first anything you want to do, whether you want to buy something, whether it's you want to check your bank balance or send money to someone, or check your emails, it's all done from one device. It's when you think about it, it's quite incredible that if you lose that one device, most people, including me, you'd be fucked. You wouldn't know what to do with yourself. I remember quite a few times, you forget your phone at home, you're in a panic.
Yeah.
You don't know what to do with yourself. No one can get hold of you. You can't get hold of anyone else, and you can't do anything. You can't do shopping. You can't check your emails. You can't check messages. It's amazing how a device that big. And it's just amazing how dependent we are on it. And, that's what's changed. No one looks at paper print anymore. Hardly anyone. But yeah, even like when you go to the airport now, do you still buy a magazine at the airport?
I would maybe buy a magazine that I'm going to sit on the plane and read.
Yeah.
But then it stays on the plane when you get off. You don't take it with you. But yeah, the whole market has changed. And it's now, obviously for us, We've gone through the transition where we went from paper to online, which is the website. Whilst we were still in paper, and then transitioned and moved away from paper, it was just purely online. And then we did forum stuff and so on. And now it's all about social media as well as having the online platform. And we sell so much through Instagram and Facebook. We don't do any advertising, but it's just through sort of organic growth.
Social media.
Yeah,
and stuff like that.
Products that we feature in customers' cars and so on.
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier on about the Blackburn hedge unit. How many of those do we sell because somebody's watched Blade's video that we've got on YouTube, which is probably there 2 years ago? They look at the SQR46 Stab and think, actually, that's the hedge unit I want for my 90's car. And they reach out to us because they've seen the video. And it's quite common. I hear stories from the sales team that, such and such has booked his car in and he's driving from Birmingham or Midlands or Scotland because he's seen one of our videos, be it a car and coffee video or video you've done or Blade's or I've done, because they watch the video and they feel like, actually, you know what, I want these guys to touch my car. I only want these guys to touch my car because it looks like they know what they're doing and we do know what we're doing. So there is that side of social media, which does bring in the sales, whereas before people are buying purely on price and size of advert. And as I mentioned previously, we went up to 8 pages in Max Power just to flex our muscles. And we got the lion's share of the business because people thought these guys were the biggest. We weren't the biggest, but we look like the biggest. We are now the biggest and have been for a while, but we don't need to shout out about that. It's something else. We send a different message now. It's about customer service. It's about the products we sell and the fact that we sell virtually all the products that you can buy under one roof. And we're not homing a consumer into a narrow bandwidth of products. If you go to some of our competitors, they don't sell all the brands. For example, they might not sell JL Audio, they might not sell Audison, they might not sell Rockford. They might have a house brand that they want to push, or they might only have 1 or 2 brands, and that's what they will offer you.
I think the good thing about us is that we cater for everybody. And we try and read the customer and understand what the customer wants. Now, if a customer comes in saying, I want sound quality, there are certain brands you'll put in front of him, and there's certain brands you won't put in front of him because they're not going to deliver the sound quality that this middle-aged person is after. Whereas if a 18, 19-year-old comes in and says, mate, I want some banging bass, then there's different brands that you'd put in front of him.
At a price point as well.
At a price point, so, and I think that's where we've always won, is that we read the customer and we sell the customer what he's asked for and what we believe will fulfill his expectations, not what we're making the most money on or not what we've got loads of in the warehouse. It's what the customer wants. And you know what, quite rightly.
So guys, we are at a momentous moment in the CAS YouTube history. We have hit 50K subscribers on YouTube. Yeah, well done. Boom.
Which isn't a lot compared to a lot of other YouTubers out there, but we're not influencers. We're not in it for the fame and the glory. We just want to put on the forefront what our company's about and what we do. And I think the 50K mark for that, it's a good place to be honest.
I agree with you there. Yes, there are quite a few other YouTubers out there who've got bigger numbers, and sometimes vanity takes control with all these numbers. But for us, sanity is important. We are here for you, the audience. We're sponsored by brands that endorse us and want us to showcase their products to you. And some of those videos we know don't get many views, but the views they do get are from consumers who want to learn about the product. So for us, it's about showing you the products that we sell and engaging with you with the projects that we are working on, and not necessarily buying a car off an auction website which has been crash damaged and repairing it and show you how we can repair it. That's not what we're about. Thank you very much for all of you that have subscribed to the channel. If you've not and you're listening or watching this, why have you not? Make sure you subscribe to the channel, because there's awesome content that we're working on, which will obviously hit the channel soon. And we've gone from me 15, 16 years ago, pushing out our first YouTube video, which was at one of our base events.
Yeah, base days, yeah.
Walking around with a little camera to where we are now. And if you look at how we've moved with the times, that's why I think we've done exceptionally well. We've gone from paper advertising, which is now sort of dead and buried. We went online, and we were one of the earliest adopters of online marketing with the cardiosecurity.com website, which went live in 2003. And at that time, there's only maybe 2 or 3 other websites that were out there. Then obviously the consumer moved away from paper advertising, moved on to online advertising, went on to forums, and you could find anything you want on forums. And then when YouTube came about, everything was available to you instantly. If you wanted to see somebody's latest car build, let's give you an example, Dougie's 190E, which we did the job here and we showcased it at Ultimate Dubs. It's out there for everyone to see. Whereas if you'd done that 20 years ago, it would have been shot for max power, and 6 months later it would have come out. But by then you would have probably seen that car umpteen times at Southend Cruise or blah blah blah, whatever it is,
Chelsea Cruise and whatnot.
The market has moved, the demands have changed and moved, and so is what we're providing to the consumer, and hence why we are now on YouTube. And we've got many great ideas that we want to showcase on our channel. Some may work, some we think will work, but we won't know until we tried them and trialed them. So it's been a good journey, hasn't it, Parm?
It's been it's been eventful, to say the least.
It doesn't really say much, does it? Eventful. What kind of word is that?
Listen, 3 years ago, I would never have imagined doing videos and all this sort of stuff. And like a lot of people, you don't like watching yourself on screen, and you don't like listening to your own voice on screen because it's just cringe. But it is what it is. Like I'm not an influencer. I don't want to be an influencer because that's just not me. But yeah, I'm happy to get on camera and keep with the times, as it were, and just buck the trend.
Our business is very easy to pivot. There's no red tape. So if there's a different direction we want to take and we want to take it next week, if it works for us, then let's do it. So that's always been our ethos: move with the times and be quick to pivot and serve the customers as I said earlier, what they want and what their needs are, not necessarily what our needs are. It's about the customer first, although not every customer is right 100% of the time. I've got to say that. We'll talk about that in another podcast, yeah. And we'll talk about some stories about customers and needs and demands and wants, and yeah, let's leave that there. So it's been a fantastic journey. We're at 50K subs. A lot's changed from this era to where we are now. And I'm sure, if we're still here in 25 years' time, me.
If I'm still here in 25 years' time, I've done something wrong.
Yeah, 25 years' time, God, I'll be in a walking stick, I reckon. I won't be driving. But anyway, so I think the future of cardio security, I think we'll need to cover that in another podcast. This is not a one-hit wonder podcast. And the only reason we're here is because you guys interacted and enjoyed our first podcast, hence why we've brought the second one to you. So there's a lot of other topics that we will cover. If there's a topic that you think we should cover, just drop a comment below and the media team will look at that and we'll see if that's something we can bring to the channel. As I said, this is not a one-hit wonder. We're here for the long term. But it's been a fantastic journey. Are there any videos that you can think of that were special to you and that you can remember? And not necessarily the ones that have had the most views, but were special to you?
You've put me right on the spot now.
Best way sometimes. Because it should be there right at the forefront of your mind.
So for me, it's doing those kind of reveal videos. And something that I really enjoyed doing recently was like the one-to-one interview videos with people. I quite enjoyed doing that one with Dougie a couple of months ago, or a few weeks back, actually. I learned stuff about Dougie that I didn't even know. And, it just connects you to them. And it's more relatable when you know the person, when you know more about the person rather than just seeing them on Instagram or on YouTube and they've got they've got a really nice car that they've spent thousands of pounds doing up.
It's true.
It's good to know more about the actual person themselves. So I think those are the type of videos that I like doing, and we will be bringing more of those to the channel as well.
I think for me, because I do less of those videos, that's more you. I quite like the car and coffee events, more so here at CAS than, the car shows that we go to. And I think it's because we're engaging with the audience. These people are here at our event. They're here at CAS. They're bringing their pride and joy. They want to show it not to us, but they want to show it to the audience that watch our videos. I think out of those, the BMW ones are great, but I do love the Mercedes ones. Maybe because I don't know as much about Mercs than I do about Porsches and BMs, and it's quite nice to interact with those people that are here and talk to them about their car and what it is and what they've done.
Yeah, because it's a learning curve for you at the same time, because then they tell you a bit about
their
car. And
I can see a BM, I can see what you've done, but with a Merc, I'm not as familiar with, models and stuff like that and wheel sizes and fitment and so on. So I do love the car and coffee events. But I also like Raj's Garage. The Raj's whole garage thing, which is the separate channel, wasn't my idea, and I was probably anti it because I was like, guys, I don't really have the time. But it was Harrison who's there, sitting there behind the camera. It was his idea that we sort of channel out the channel, and those people that are here maybe to see my car builds and so on can watch it on that channel. And CAS TV is more about the business and what we get up to. And I think that's worked for me because I always felt like I didn't want to showcase my stuff on the CAS TV channel. It's quite nice having the other channel. And there's a lot of projects, and I don't do this for likes. I don't do it for comments or for shares. I do it because that's what I'm passionate about. Those are cars that I wanted or I want, and I obviously modify them. And in some cases, I do it to resell, but in most cases, I do it to keep for myself. So I do like that side of the business, and that side of the media. Now, for you guys, what is it that you like about CAS TV? Let us know in the comments. Is there something that we're missing out on and that you'd like us to bring to the channel? Or is there something you prefer to see more of? Just let us know. And we're here for you at the end of the day. As Parm said earlier, we're not here to listen to ourselves and watch ourselves. We're here for you guys. So just let us know what you think we should bring to the channel. There's a few questions that Parm and myself have asked during this episode. Any car stories you have from this era, from the Max Power era, drop a comment below. What else do you like about the channel, and what do you dislike about the channel, and what do you think we should bring to the channel as well? So please drop a comment below. Make sure you like this particular episode. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, and I will see you again on another episode on CAS TV or in Raj's Garage.
Well, it's been eventful.
It has. See you again soon on another podcast, hopefully, guys. See you.